Okay, welcome officially to the 2024 December Touchstone Community of Interest Call. I'm Jeff Hellman, your Master of Ceremonies, and we have lots of information to go through today, so let's get right to it. So we have a large community of all the thought leaders in the health information technology space. Here are just some of the logos. So the purpose of these sessions are to have our community be informed about everything that's happening in the Touchstone ecosystem and our and especially our product roadmap. So what's in it for you, for our community, is to influence our product roadmap, help us align our capabilities with your program needs, collaborate with other Fire users or other Fire programs and Touchstone users around the world, and again, ensure that our roadmap and our delivery schedule meets your needs. So I'm going to turn it over to Wendy to talk about our recent releases. So go ahead, Wendy.
Yeah, thanks. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate your time this morning. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because we've got a pretty good list and we've got more important stuff we want to get to. But this is all available on the Touchstone landing page, as well as the docs, if you want to read in a little more detail. So in October, we were happy to release the Touchstone Platform 6.2.2. We made some validator updates based on, there we go. Perfect. Okay. Right, so we caught the Touchstone validators up with some core library updates. This was a pretty big release in terms of our partners that write test scripts. There was some core library validation that had changed. So there was a fair amount of test script work that went along with this release. We also updated Wildfire to align with the core library updates as well. We enhanced the Touchstone validators to allow for the new Fire Extensions IG package upload. Validation messages from the validator are now prefixed with the source that generated the message, which is very helpful when it comes to debugging. And we updated the Touchstone validation package to now display the IG validation packages on the UI. Previously, that feature was only available to users that had the rights to upload packages, and that's at a higher subscription level. This UI update allows folks who are doing testing to look at a validator and see what versions of an IG is in that particular validator. So organizations that are testing IG updates, they can make sure that they're testing the test scripts against the correct IG for the functionality that they're implementing, whether it be the latest and greatest IG or what's already been published and is, quote, in production. So this was a big enhancement in terms of usability for folks that are doing their testing. Go ahead, Jeff. Of course, some bug fixes, always trying to make things better. We corrected the fire path engine to properly follow the defined regex to limit the milliseconds to 3 digits. We corrected the validators to make the validation terminology errors for unknown code systems to reduce warning messages. Corrected the wildfire date search parameter logic, and corrected the wildfire numeric search parameters to accept decimal values. Also did some maintenance and security as part of this release and with our ongoing continuity of operations. We did a complete Touchstone environment version rollback and refined some of those procedures.
Was there a question there in the background?
All right, go ahead, Jeff. And do please feel free to interrupt if you have a question. So we have Touchstone 6.3 coming out this month rapidly. It's going to be the end of the year. For this release, we are planning to enable the preferred SSL protocol configuration and the cipher suites for Touchstone clients. This is a big one for folks. We're going to enhance the password reset process to enable self-managed reset. We've had issues in the past with folks being able to reset their password and needing to rely on the Touchstone support team. So we've enhanced that process to better enable users to self-manage that password reset. Touchstone Wildfire will now support TLS 1.3. And we've improved the test execution timeout logic. This will stop tests that are stuck. This impacts our users at subscription levels where their concurrent test execution is throttled based on their subscription. So test executions don't stick for so long. Another big one. Oh, go ahead. And there may be somebody who's not on mute. Please take a second and check your mute. If you don't, please jump off if you have a question. But make sure you're on mute if you don't intend to be heard. Okay, so big one for our test script authors. We are increasing the test definition folder name limit to 40 characters. Why is this a big thing? Because as we are supporting test scripts for multiple IGs, as there are more versions in flight than we've seen in the past, we can now make our test definition folder names a little bit more reflective of the IG, the version, and communicate more to folks who are looking for where they might find the test they want to run. I think we went from 20 something to 40, so a pretty good increase in your folder name limit. Another big one that will impact users' positive usability. We are now providing the ability to set a test system as inactive. That's not something that was a feature previously. Why this is helpful is when you go to create a test setup now, you will see all of the test systems in Touchstone, whether they're meant to be used, whether they've been deleted, whether they're active. So now we're going to allow users that own a test system to be able to set that test system as inactive. And when you go to test setup, you will no longer see test systems that aren't active, that aren't meant to be tested against. You'll still be able to filter test execution results by those, even though they're inactive. So you won't lose the ability to reach tests that were run against a test system. But if for any reason you don't want people to execute tests against a test system, you can set it to inactive. We are going to be increasing password security to align with the latest best practices. This is part of our ongoing security and best practices efforts. And we're going to enhance the Wildfire reference implementation to fully support the Fire Context Access Token. And this aligns with supporting the SMART specifications. Go ahead, Jeff. All right, I'm not going to read through all these bug fixes. You guys will get these slide decks at the end, but we are addressing some thorns in some folks' sides. If anybody has any questions about these bug fixes or you pass this on to your development teams, definitely have them reach out. We're happy to answer any questions about any of this, but I'm not gonna read through all these. Go ahead, Jeff. All right. The Q1 2025 planned release. Mario, did you want me to keep going or did you want to speak to this one?
Yeah, let me jump in on this one. So jump in, Wendy, if I get one of these wrong or if you want to add anything. So Q1 2025 and moving forward, one of the things we're going to be doing, of course, is working with our cybersecurity testing group, Leviathan. They will be working to test our latest versions of Touchstone and Wildfire to make sure that we don't have any bad actor exploits out there, and make sure that we provide the best secure environment for our participants and our members organizations to test with. We think this is one of the big features of Touchstone as a managed service, to make sure that it is safe for everyone to play as they're testing their Fire endpoints and their Fire applications. We're, as Wendy indicated, we're continuing to provide additional support for Smart 2 and Smart 2.2. So look for more of that to come. And if you're interested in learning more about what we're implementing with regards to that, please let us know. We're continuing to enhance error reporting so that a true TDD environment, we can let the developers and the QA teams have an informative response as to what is going on, and when a terminology server is unavailable, make it more informative. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this as we go forward, but we're going to be introducing conformance badges, be able to show and allow people to, at a Fire IG level, be able to state and show how conformant they are to an IG and make that a visual representation and allow people to have a permalink from their badge back to Touchstone and the test results. We're continuing to work with FAST on identity and security. We're going to have some enhancements for the UDAP validation and workflow. One of the things that's really important, we believe, moving forward, is not simply to test a message exchange level, but to actually test a workflow. We hope our member organizations and our partners recognize the benefit of testing multiple IGs working together in workflows and why that's important. That's a big differentiator for Touchstone, and one we want the market to take advantage of, to make sure that these systems will actually work in production the way they're intended. And of course, continuing along the security track, we're going to be working to implement multi-factor authentication. We've seen this as a common best practice even with HL7, so we're going to follow suit. Jeff, next slide. So for those of you who haven't seen our conformance suites, we're able to report against an IG a level of test coverage, a level of conformance to that test package. And so what we're going to do is be able to make a badge available to an implementer or a vendor or an implementation team to be able to promote and report out to the community how conformant they are. We're working with HL7 and the Foundry, and I'll talk about that in a second, but there's multiple different ways we can report out conformance. Now, keep in mind, an IG may have 100 or 200 requirements. We're going to be reporting conformance against testability, that the areas of the IG that we've implemented tests for. There is still another metric out there about how much coverage we have with respect to testing. That needs to be handled in a separate way. But we'll have both badges and ribbons to be able to promote what level of coverage and what level of testability you've passed with respect to every IG. Next slide. So one of the advancements we've made in the recent months working with HL7 and the Foundry is to integrate conformance results on the RI level with Touchstone. So now if there is an RI that has against an IG that is testable through Touchstone, we can actually link that to the conformance. And going forward, as we enhance Touchstone to have these badges, we'll be able to link the Foundry's RI page to dynamically update the results as we move forward. So we're looking forward to continuing to work with HL7 and the Foundry and be able to help people promote the conformity level of their RIs. Next slide. So we're continuing to work on the reporting dashboard. As we get into 2025, we'll have Wendy. Wendy, I'll just take this slide since I'm moving forward. But we'll continue to report back on the dashboard. And if anyone is interested in seeing some of our ability to report on these conformance testing and certification programs through our dashboard, let us know. We're happy to show that off at any point. It's available to program level subscribers. Next slide. Wendy, do you want to take this slide, or do you want me to handle it? Your choice.
No, I'm happy to speak to it. So I would ask folks to, if you pay attention to any slide out of this deck, and share it with your team, to share this forward. This is something we ask at all of the meetings, and would really appreciate some guidance from the community as we look at 2025. From our perspective, we think priority one items are workflow testing, especially with respect to the burden reduction use case. Usability enhancements, always important. And of course, reporting enhancements, which we continue to work to get going. In terms of priority two items, multi-version support for US cores 610 and 700. Really, this is a priority one item in terms of our test script support, but what we need from the community is, and what's helpful is a timeline on when folks need these, so that we can make sure that we have stuff ready as the community is ready for that testing support. And then, of course, security enhancements, while they're listed as a priority two item, they are ongoing in the background as something that we continue to focus on from a best practices perspective. Some things that we really want to know, how does it align with your organization's needs, and how should we be prioritizing? Things like dynamic patient test data, test orchestration and conformance testing, more implementation support. Fire R5. There was a lot of talk at the beginning of 2024 about whether or not Fire R5 would be implemented by folks. The feedback we've gotten is folks are just holding off for R6. So we've kind of backburnered R5 support, but if that's not accurate based on where folks are with what they're building and implementing, we need to know. Reporting, we continue to try and push that forward from a priority standpoint, but want to make sure that we're implementing the things in a reporting engine that matter for your programs and for your leadership, and in support of the work that you're doing. Enhancing the test script upload to allow a user to specify the IG to test scripts. So right now you can do it in the name, but would it benefit people to be able to structure on upload tests to identify test scripts and the IGs that they test to specifically? Accessing and executing test systems created by others within your organization. This is a user usability enhancement that we've had folks ask for, but then we can't seem to get a beat on really how important it is. And it's the ability to share a test setup, so that other people in your organization can run the same test setup that you've created. Right now, test setups only belong to the user who created them. And then, of course, API enhancements. We have a fairly robust set of features via API, but what could we add, and what priorities should we add them? We want to make the tool, we want to enhance the tool to meet folks with their needs, and what they're forecasting. So that feedback really is crucial to us. Next slide, Jeff. All right, back to Mario.
All right, thank you very much, Wendy. All right, you're going to hear a lot of discussion going forward from multiple different organizations, pointing to 2025 as being the year of the implementer. When it comes to Fire and Fire IGs, we see a very small number of organizations currently implementing and currently testing. We expect, with the ongoing regulation and the ongoing calendar, as it moves closer and closer to people needing to be conformant to some of these new regulations and final rules, that the implementation pace is going to pick up. In seeing that, one of the things we want to do is make sure that our environment and our teams are as ready to help the implementers as possible. Right now, with respect to the implementation community, we see a large focus at the IG level. And we think that over time, we can help provide some better guidance to the implementers to focus on scenarios that are being inclusive of the connectathons, whether they're the HL7 fire connectathons or TMS's connectathon in July. We want to provide a little bit more guidance to the implementers so that they're implementing the common areas of an IG so that when they come to a connectathon, they can test together. Seeing implementers use different paths through an IG, and while they're all advancing different parts of the IG, so it makes testing or collaborating difficult. So we're going to see a lot of activity around supporting the implementer, and we wanted you to know Touchstone and Aegis will definitely be here. We're trying to get people to test early and test often. We want to encourage sponsors and stakeholders to really promote the need for testing and the need for having highly conformant solutions. This is going to help impact the quality of data. We saw that at ASCP as a major topic. We have to do whatever we can do to improve the data quality. If we don't do that, if we keep the bar too low and people are allowed to get into production with less than highly conformant systems, it's going to impact the quality of the information being exchanged. And we see more and more use cases within fire that are going to be driving bidirectional care coordination and information exchange. So unlike some of the prior standards that were read-only, with this bidirectional coordination, we're going to need higher quality of data. So anything we can do to help the implementers accelerate adoption, improve quality of data, be conformant with these IGs is a good thing. And we want to do that. We want to focus on that in 2025. We have an HL7 Fire Connectathon coming up in January. The test track is going to focus on some international IGs like InfoWay, just showing how does an implementer take an IG and work on it, especially when it's bidirectional, as in TMS's use case with prior auth. Bidirectional use cases are going to get a lot of attention, we think, in 2025. We've got an IHE InfoWay Projectathon coming up in February in Toronto. We plan on taking Touchstone and Wildfire there to demonstrate some of the stuff that we're doing with our US counterparts here with CMS and CDC and others. We also learned about a market research effort that's underway as the industry intends to do some analysis comparing fire testing approaches between fire testing products and platforms like Touchstone and Inferno and others. So we're really excited about that publication coming out, which will independently show where the differentiator in products are between feature sets in Touchstone versus other products. So we're excited to support that effort. It's an independent effort. It's not being led by Aegis, but we are providing information as some of the other tooling organizations are. Next slide, please. So one of the slides that I lean on that we developed under FAST was this return on investment. We still want to take time to share with everybody in the Touchstone community of interest call the fact that while the stakeholders have a significant responsibility in what they do, and the standards development organizations and what we do with the IGs and the IG publishing and Connectathon equally has an important role, they are by far combined the lesser of all of the efforts that need to happen across the implementation community in order for our stakeholders to truly see an ROI. And so if we're not getting our environments and our ecosystems ready to be tested, if our tools and tool sets are not there for the implementer, if we can't help accelerate the implementation community's ability to adopt this, then we're fearful that the delay will impact the ROI, it will impact our adoption across the industry, and it'll slow down fire across the spectrum. And we want to do everything we can do to avoid that. We want to help accelerate that adoption and make sure that people have highly conformant solutions so that we can help our stakeholders see an ROI. We will not see an ROI if these specifications and standards are sitting on the shelf and the implementers are not driving and pushing forward. Next slide. So from our perspective, combined, as I said, I've already covered this, but basically we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can do to help the implementation community. Next slide. So as we've covered with the fast accelerators, with the testing and versioning work, we're trying to communicate out to everyone all the different responsibilities in ensuring we take a Fire IG and make it as ready for implementation as possible. So right now we're advancing test case authoring and trying to incorporate automated tools that will be able to take future IGs and be able to generate fire test scripts. It's very important that the community recognize all the good work that's going on to help create more tooling that will help automate the generation of test scripts, and that Touchstone will be able to support those test scripts going forward. We want to encourage more testing communities to use the fire test script where possible. Next slide. So one of the things I want everyone to be able to recognize is when we go to test workflows, it's not a simple message exchange, request and response. Where we're headed with fire, we're supporting the CMS's prior auth, PAS, and burden reduction, and new use cases that are being considered, especially with consent and security identity, in order to tie these IGs together so that we can actually test workflow through comprehensive bidirectional exchange and multi-actor, multi-organizational participation. We really need to be able to recognize these are complex use cases. And the next slide. In order to support these multiple actors and multiple organizations, we really need a testing platform that is able to introspect the messages as they move between actors, between organizations, in a context-aware testing regimen, and ensure that the rigors that we're not only testing happy paths, but that we can test negative, exception, and error handling. This is one of the differentiators of what we're trying to do under our team that we really want the community to be aware of, especially when we think about testing consent. It plays a key role in how these systems are going to interact. So we can't just test a simple query to see if we get a consent back. We need to actually see the missions, the systems that are exchanging information actually work on what that consent grants or denies access to, depending on the systems under test. That we hope the community of interest here sees that differentiator and recognizes that Touchstone is sort of unique in how it approaches being able to test workflows, and we hope that that's a value moving forward. Not all platforms, not all testing approaches support this approach. Next slide. So Jeff, I'll hand it back over to you, and thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Mario. So this is just a recap of sort of our 4 quadrants of thinking about Touchstone in terms of the stakeholders. What we're finding, what we designed it for, and what we have found in talking to our users is that it serves these major communities, basically making development go faster, having the QA team be able to focus on identifying the defects and not having to become fire experts. The same is true with developers on that matter as well, and providing objective evidence to stakeholders to see that fire implementations are conformant and are meeting the business objectives of the organization. And of course, risk management. Any enterprise has risk, so that's a major constituency that we don't talk a lot about, probably don't talk enough about, but managing risk and preventing risk incidents is a major emphasis of folks, especially in healthcare. Here's a recap of upcoming events that we are going to be participating in and that are of interest to our community. Mara's already mentioned the upcoming Connectathon in January, and we'll be attending the work group meeting as well. The IHE InfoWake Projectathon he's mentioned will be at HIMSS in Las Vegas in March. There's also a Da Vinci virtual testing event that we'll be participating in. And then, of course, we have the May HL7 Connectathon and work group meeting. And we've been at Dev Days since day one. We'll be there again this next year. Okay, well, thank you for attending. We will be sending this slide deck and the recording to folks. And following that, we'll also have a schedule out for future meetings in 2025 for the community of interest. There are a bunch of other slides. I won't go through them here. A bunch of great background material that you'll want to take a look at and gives some recap of things we've discussed in previous sessions and a little bit more background on Touchstone for the teams to distribute to your teams. And I think, oh, that's right. Touchstone, I think we are
Jeff, we're a formal HL7 fire educator. This is part of the background slides. We provide these for everybody to review. Yep.
We're one of the first organizations that has participated in this, right? I'm trying to think of that word, but I can't. Sort of a founding participant in the HL7 certification program.
Yeah, there's a small number of organizations and small number of HL7 members that are authorized educators. So yeah. One of the things we're going to do now is stop the recording. Yep, go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
Do we want to provide an opportunity for questions while we're recording and then another opportunity after we stop recording?
No, let's drop off recording for now and let people ask questions if they want.
Okay. Let me stop the recording then.